King and Assassins, the greatest board game that you haven't heard of. I've no idea why you haven't heard of this game though. It is absolutely fantastic and should be a lot bigger than it is. Let's start by going through how to play. King and Assassins is a strictly two-player game that plays in about 20 to 30 minutes. One of the players is going to be playing as the king and his guardians, which are these blue figures here. The objective for the king is to move across the board and then enter into this castle. The king wants to get into his castle, and you do that either through going through this door or this door over here. However, this king is not very popular, and a lot of these villagers are quite angry with the king, and they have arrived to greet the king and shout their displeasure at him. However, the eagle-eyed amongst you will have noticed this game isn't called King and Angry Villagers. This game is called King and Assassins. And the thing is, of all of these angry villagers, 3 of them are actually deadly assassins who are there to try and kill the king. And to truly ramp up the tension, it is only the player playing as these angry villagers that knows which of these angry villagers is a deadly assassin. The win conditions are relatively simple. If you're playing as the king player, you win either when the king enters the castle or when your blue guards have arrested all 3 of the deadly assassins. And if you're playing as the angry villagers and assassins, you win either when the deck of round cards is empty, then basically the king has run out of time to get into the castle, or of course when the king is dead. Set up the game by placing an angry villager token on each square that has a little X, and also a guard knight token on the squares that have the little circle. Next up, the player playing as the assassins will take the top 3 cards from this deck that has a red ruby on them. Be sure to shuffle them first, and keep these 3 cards to yourself. Do not show your opponent. The reason behind that is these 3 figures correspond to 3 of the angry villager tokens that you've just placed on the board. These are then the 3 assassins. So make sure you keep that secret. You want to keep the player playing as the king guessing which of the angry villagers are the assassins. And setup really is that quick and easy. What you'll do next is you'll take this deck of cards here that have the silver diamond on the back, and shuffle them, of course, and then reveal the one that's on the top. This then shows how many action points each player has at their disposal this round. If you're playing as the king player, you have 1 action point to move your king, and 5 action points for all of your knights combined. Not 5 action points for each blue guy individually, but 5 for them in total. Likewise, for the angry villagers, you've then got 4 action points. So what do you actually use these action points for? Well, they're primarily used for moving. You'll notice that the board is made up of a mixture of these white squares and also some squares that are on a roof that have a slightly darker square within them. That very much symbolises that they're on a roof, as the picture below depicts. If a guard wants to move along the board and move along the floor, 1 action point is to move 1 square. You can't move diagonal. You can only move forward, backwards, left and right. If the guard wants to jump up onto the roof, that takes a little bit more energy, so moving up onto there is going to take 2 action points for them to do that. Once up on the roof, they can then move how they like. 1 movement is then 1 action point, and if they're then going to jump down from the roof, that is also 1 action point to move down from the roof. For the angry villagers, it is exactly the same as it is for the guards. However, when you have revealed which of the angry villagers is in fact a deadly assassin in disguise, the assassins can move a little bit better. It is still 1 movement is 1 action point along the ground, but jumping up onto a roof rather than costing 2 action points now only costs 1. Moving along the roof is also 1 action point per movement, but jumping down from a roof, rather than costing an action point, that is actually free if you are a deadly assassin. It doesn't cost any action points at all to reveal which of your villagers are a deadly assassin, simply change the token as I just did. And one more minor clarification about the king can only move along the ground. He's a king, he's not going to jump up onto a roof. That's not the type of thing kings do. They only move along the ground. Another good thing to point out here is that just because this player has 5 action points for their knights and 1 action point for their king, it doesn't mean that they have to move the king first and then the knights, or even the knights first and then the king. So long as it ends up being 5 action points for knights and 1 action point for king, that's what they can do. So they can, for example, go 1, 2, 3, and then move the king, and then 4, 5, or something like that. What you're not allowed to do is to transfer some of these and say, well, how about instead we have 4 of these and 2 of these, or how about none of these and 6 of these? You're not allowed to do that. It has to be 5 here and 1 here. The king and knights player always goes first, and after the angry villager's turn, you simply take a new card, and then the game proceeds as normal. But there are a few other little things that you can do. So this card, for example, has this symbol on it here, the little handcuff symbol down here. What the knights can do then is, if they are directly adjacent to an angry villager, they can arrest them. So if I don't like the look of this guy, I can go, right, 1, 2, then I'm stood next to him, I'm going to arrest him, that's 3 action points in total, and then I've got 3 more to play with for my knights. But I can only do that on the rounds with a handcuff symbol down there. What you can also do, playing as the king player, is you can push these angry villagers. If I think this guy is stood in the way, I can move him along like this. If there's more than one there, well, I can push them both. What I can't do is push somebody up onto a roof like that. That wouldn't be possible. So at that point, I wouldn't be able to push any further. You can, however, push people off a roof like this. That's no problem at all. This lady just fell off a roof. That's not a problem. When an assassin has been previously revealed, the knights can also stand directly adjacent to them, use 1 action point basically to stab the assassin. The assassin is then gone. When an assassin has been revealed, you can then stand directly adjacent to a knight, and you can spend 1 action point to stab the knight, and that is then removed from the board. If you are then able to reach a second knight within the same turn, that's very important, it has to be in the same turn if you're going to do this, then if you're going to stab them again, the second guy will take 2 action points to be stabbed. Also, if you find yourself stood next to the king, you can then stab the king for 2 action points. Indicate then that the king has been stabbed once by changing this disc from the green one to the red one. You have to stab the king twice for the king to be eliminated. You get these little reminder cards in the box as well that remind you how many action points everything takes. And it really is that simple. That, by the way, is one of the things that I absolutely love the most about this game. The simplicity of it all. You're just moving guys around some squares. He's trying to get to there. The other player is trying to stop them. It's so simple, but so elegantly done. And to be honest, the tension when you're playing this is absolutely palpable. Because what quickly happens is the king and his guards sort of move around, and quickly you get a big horde of an angry mob right in front of you. The king player is then wondering, which of these guys is a deadly assassin? Which of these guys is it that's going to kill me? And if you're playing as the assassins, you're trying to move your guys around so that you can get your assassins in a good position before revealing them and before letting the other player know that that guy is your assassin and not one of the other ones. It's absolutely phenomenal in its simplicity, but in the tension that it creates. My only minor complaint about this game, the only thing that I don't really like, is that And my wife and I both agree on this. It is maybe 10 times more fun to play as the angry villagers, as the assassins. You want to be the bad guy, right? You want to be the one with the extra knowledge of which of these guys are the ones that are that are the deadly assassins. You want to stab the king. But I mean, I only have a sample size of 2 people who have given me that opinion. I haven't actually played this game with anybody else. What I will say though is the game is very balanced. You know, we tend to win just as often as each other, and when she's being the king, when I'm being the king, the kings and the assassins tend to win just as much as well. So the game is balanced. It's just purely from a fun perspective. You want to be the bad guy. But yeah, I think this is the best game that you have never heard of. I think that everybody should hear about this game. I've been told, though, that it's getting kind of hard to get hold of and that they're not printing that many copies of it anymore. So, you know, go and get it. It's really, really good. This is without doubt a board game Bananas approves. I don't like that expression, but I absolutely love this game. I'd love to know what you guys think. Does it sound good? Does it sound entertaining? Have you played this game before? Do let me know down in the comments. But in the meantime, please subscribe, give this video a like if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next one. Take care, goodbye, and good luck.